Hello, my name is Lucas, and in this video I will be talking about how the weapon team sculpt their assets for Warframe. Our workflow is based on simple tech and a strong use of art theory. A lot of time complex tool will drive the final look of your asset, and we try to avoid that. It's difficult to talk about art theory as art can be anything. When I do so, I made reference to a set of rules shared by artists over the centuries and the ones that define the style of Warframe that the art director put in place at the beginning of the project. And keep in mind that art theory, all of those rules are not set in stone, but I would recommend for you to try first to get comfortable with those rules before breaking them. One part that is very important but that people usually skip is the basic shapes. Why it is very important? Because your model will be seen from afar the most of the time, and if you apply detail on a weak base, your asset will feel really weak at the end. At this stage, you will resolve lots of technical problems, like is the 2D concept work in 3D, how the clip connects to the gun, how does the whole thing animate, etc. About poly count, keep it very low. Why? So the shape can be changed easily without weird artifact, and that you wouldn't wasting time cleaning a not approved version, and you'll not be too precious about it and be more inclined to change it. A lot of time people ask me how much polygons. This is depend of the model size, but you'll need to have just enough for the silhouette to be read properly. You can see in this example that different elements of the same asset have different mesh, like polygon density. This is because, for example, this chain link, you can see that if I had put the same mesh density as the rest of the asset, it would be like the one below, and it doesn't show anything about the silhouette. It's very abstract. So in this one I put way more polygon density. So try to be more adaptive about that, rather than using one mesh density for everything. Here will be some art theory rules that we will be using making the basic shape. You will be able to find more in the TennoGen website, and you have to keep in mind that those rules change between factions, right? So the first one will be that try to have a good balance between detail and area of visual rest. Try to look at your model from afar a lot and from the in-game perspective. Check the silhouette. Don't divide the mass of the basic shape evenly. Try to have some dynamic. Try to have one side of the silhouette contrast with the other one. So if you do something very straight in one side, try to have something more curvy in the other side, and etc. So as we said before, we are using simple technology. So here are a list of the tools that I generally use for the creation of the basic shapes. Keep in mind that some specific case need other type of tools, but those are the general ones. So I will use like 3 brushes the move brush, the clay buildup, and the edge polish. I use Dynamesh and I use the move scale rotate. Something else that you have to keep in mind that it would be better for you to sculpt in gray, but add color at the end. As lots of old artists explained, it is easier for you to see the volume with the gray material without all the color variation that can give the illusion of some volumes. But the color is a really important part of your design, so it is a good idea to add it even at this stage of basic shape. And now I will try to show you how I use all those concepts by creating the basic shape of this Grenier grenade. So here I really like to start with a character in Zbrush, and what you can see between his leg is the original grenade that in low poly that we had in the game right now. So it's a good idea just to get the good proportion directly in Zbrush. So now for my concept, because it's kind of like a cylindric shape, I like to start with a classic cylinder from Zbrush. You will be tempted to say that it would be better to use a capsule, but the capsule will be so perfect that you will feel less inclined to change it. So I really like to start with like a very simple cylinder. I'm gonna smooth out the tips to get the rounded shape, and then I'm gonna massage even more just to get a more interesting shape. So there I'm trying just to get the proportion from the original grenade. It's a good starting point. Oh, and then done. This is how you do your basic shapes. Pretty quick, right? So I like to Dynamesh, and as I said, I really want it to be really low poly. So because it's low poly, look, I could smooth pretty quickly, and then I have like the shape I want pretty quickly. If it was with a higher poly count, it will be so long for me to have this spherical shape on the tip of the cylinder, just because it was more polygon to place. And so here I'm using clay buildup to push a little bit the volume around. I activated the symmetry too. It's help you work quicker. It's really good to work on really low poly too, because it will, if you have a higher poly count, you will be more tempted to add fine detail, where here you can't add it. It doesn't look, it can't show well. So there it will help you to focus more on the basic shapes. So sometime to go like quicker, I just like duplicate what I have already. Scale everything and then select a little part, scale this part, and we have another element created pretty quickly. I really like to have lots of subtool. I think this makes the work like easier. So now, yeah, now I duplicate it again, and I change some symmetry axis just because it would be different from the piece I duplicated. With the move brush, because it's really low poly, it can really easily it can easily be pushed around. It's way more flexible. If it was like really high poly, I don't think like all the basic shape would came as easily as if it was like low poly, like in this case. So there I use like a H polish to flatten a little bit quickly. Lots of move brush too, again. This is a bit tricky. You can see in my other screen, but I have like the concept too on the other screen. So I check all the time. The trick always when you start a new concept that you try to translate from 2D to 3D is to really try to translate the essence of the 2D concept, like the feeling, why is it so cool? So you're trying to translate everything, all of those things. So sometimes it can be tricky. Sometimes it's really easy, but sometimes it's tricky because the 2D concept doesn't work in 3D at all. So you have to massage everything a lot just to get kind of the same sensation. And at the end, it's a design process because you're adapting the design that was given to you in 2D in the 3D world, and some of them need so much changes. That's crazy. And in this piece, because it's a smaller piece that I want to show a little bit more detail, I added up a little bit more polygons. When you want to have like straight line, it's really easy to have them with a subtool, with a move tool. Sorry, look there. I can push the thing around, and this kind of cylinder wasn't really well aligned, but just with some clever stroke with the move brush, bam! Now it's look kind of perfect. Then duplicating the 3 elements. I because I merge all those three and I don't want them to dynamesh, I like to uncheck dynamesh just because sometimes I it's a reflex to dynamesh everything, and I will process those three without looking, and I save, I close Zbrush, I reopen it, and I'm like, oh my god, no, I merge them together. So it's kind of like a security thing that I do. And in this case, for this volume, I think like just adding it not as another subtool, it's so small and it doesn't really need to be. So like those one too. Look, I did like a detail from close, then I move away from the model, I look how this detail work in a overall view, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna keep this one. Or sometimes I'm like, nah, no, it's not working, so I kind of erase it and try again. Yeah, look, there I check everything I did, this is good, this is not good. I switch lots of symmetry, the symmetry axis, just to save the most work. Like the symmetry tools are so powerful that you can use different ways and then at the end have an asymmetrical object, but when you start as symmetrical, you gain some time on the creation process. That's pretty cool. So now everything is done. I think it's a good basic shape. The quality is good enough. So now I'm gonna try to put some color on. So it's pretty easy. I like to use the mask lasso tool. And first thing you have to do is like fill your color, fill your subtool with the color, and then add up the other color on top of this one. If you don't do this way, the thing is where you mask and didn't apply any color yet, it will put some white, and then you will have to reselect this white place, and it's a bit it will be trickier. So yeah, the idea is just mask the part you want to color, and then fill object. And for small detail, I really like to take the standard brush to uncheck the HUD and check RGB and just paint directly. I only do this for the basic shape stage because in the highpoly one, it's kind of not perfect, and if you have like two polygons, like if you have like a trim too deep, it will color like the other side too, so it will be a bit more tricky. So sometimes I don't do this often, but sometimes I add the emissive too. I think on this one it's kind of important. So just seeing like where the emissive should be. So something I didn't do earlier and that I like to do, and I do on, because this is not my machine, I like to crank up this curve a little bit so you have more visibility when you sculpt. So this is not my machine, so usually in my computer this is already set up this way. Then it's done for the basic shapes. Now we're gonna jump into talking about the highpoly. The detail's true purpose is to complement the basic shape and make them stronger. This is very important in my opinion. When you add the detail, try to use just two sizes of brush, one small and the other one double the size of the small one. This will make those two sizes different from each other, so you will be able to have like a good contrast, and keep using those size on all over the asset, or the different elements that compose the object will not feel coherent together. It's a good idea too to test your brush sizes at the beginning. Some object doesn't need really thin detail and other really need them. And it will depend too on the size of the textures that you will make. Don't do too thin details that will be so small that everything will be lost when you bake it. And don't forget about the art theory rules that we talked about before. They are very important in the detailed process. And same as the basic shape, try to sculpt in gray and then add color. So the first step, you will zero mesh your one subtool. Try to have like pretty low mesh density, and then like clean the shape with the smooth and move brush. Sometimes I use H-polish too. Why you should keep a very low version of it? It's to give you the possibility to smooth all the curves easily and have them very clean. And if you need to change the basic shape but you already put lots of detail, you can go back, smooth everything, rework your basic shape on one specific part, and then re-add the detail on top of it. Then add up some subdivision and do another clean pass with the same brushes. So I did start with a very simple subtool and it doesn't need that much cleanup, but when I start another subtool you will be able to see a bit better what I'm talking about. Now that everything is subdivided and clean, we're going to start to add up some detail with a very simple trim brush. So to make this simple trim brush, you will select first the standard brush, then in alpha you're going to put alpha 39, and in stroke lazy mouse you're going to put the lazy step around like 0.01 and the lazy radius at 20. I like to have my lazy snap at 0 as I don't like how it works. And my brush size for the big one will be 2 and for the small one it will be 1. And now my model is clean. I'm gonna add up detail with this simple trim brush. I'm gonna start with the bigger size first, and then I'm gonna refine with the smaller size brush. And keep in mind that when you detail at this kind of scale, nothing needs to be perfect. When you will zoom out, you will see that all the imperfection will blend and disappear, and you will still have this feeling of uh, of, of tight and clean detail. Lots of time you're gonna pass so much time on one line where you probably have to go a bit quicker, a bit less perfect, but the result will be still very good. So now I isolate the subtool to be able to work on those areas that they intersect with other subtool. It makes the work more easier and you have way more visibility. So there I put all the size 2 detail. So now it looks good. I just want to make sure that it looks good in a overhaul. Yep, it does look cool. So I'm gonna follow now, and I'm gonna put the size 1 detail pass with the trim brush. So in lots of cases there you can see that I do my trim in multiple steps. First steps I do like the sub, and I really like to add the had close to it. It's gonna help to see it way better. It's gonna catch the shadow and the light in a really beautiful way, and it's kind of something that is very specific to Warframe, I feel too. So here you see it's not perfect, but it works from far away. And even I think we can even think that to have this organic technology feeling, you don't have to be too perfect, even in the really close detail pass. So I think even all those imperfections, even if they are difficult to catch from afar, they still can give you this feeling of organic technology, something a bit more chaotic, something that stick together in a really weird way. So I think this is an important part as opposed as lots of people that want things to be like 100% clean, 100% like if you zoom in the pixel and you're like, oh, this one, like this vertex is not really good when you have like 3 million vertices, so you can do that. So now I'm happy with it. I want to check, and I forgot about the color, so I'm gonna go back in the history, see, okay, those are the color I chose, and I'm gonna apply them. You can see that I choose other color than the one that I use for the basic shapes stage. In the basic shapes stage, I wanted to see if the color match, like could help the design. So I try to put the color closest to the one that I wanted in-game. In this stage, because I'm building the highpoly and I will bake those color into a map, I try to get all those color more contrasted from each other, so it will be way easier to divide those different elements and apply a new material depending on what color it is. If that makes sense. So same system than the one that like same not system, same workflow as the one to do like the basic shape coloring. But as you saw, I didn't use a brush to paint on top of it, because the brush is not really precise, and the lasso mask is one of the most precise in my opinion, so I really use it a lot. So now we are jumping into the second subtool. So the remesh pretty low. I think the most important element here is this like bulbous, like the really smooth area. So I really smooth it pretty good. I try to clean it as much as I can. Then I divide. I re-clean this divided version. The cleanup stage here is not really long, as the asset is it's a grenade, it's really small. But in other pieces, the cleanup stage can be more tricky. So there you're gonna see. Oh, so here you can see that there is a subtool behind that went through. So I just select this subtool, smooth the part to push it back, and then it's good. So there, I think I'm not really happy about the central part. I think we can do something a bit better. The problem is like I will have to change the basic shape of it. So lots of people change the basic shape of the middle part directly on the subdivided version, right? So they do this. They smooth. It's take time to smooth well. Then we build on top of it. Then we smooth. Look, it's not like a perfect like a shape. So the thing I do, I go back in my subdivision and I do my change here. So look, this is quicker and this is way more smooth. This is how you can have like all those really good curve. And then I usually go back one subdivision up, and then I smooth, I clean, then I do the next one until you went back to your full subdivision. And look, this is clean. This is a good way to restart your detail. And look around, I didn't lost any of the detail I already put. So this is a really good way, because you change your opinion and then you add the detail, and then the detail doesn't work with the basic shape anymore. So the workflow needs to be flexible. So there I put like detail with the size 2 brush. I try to do the whole subtool. Again, it's a really good idea to start with but sometimes you have like a huge piece and you feel a bit intimidated about it. So if you have lots of subtool, they are kind of divided pretty well, and it's kind of give you the opportunity to start with like really small subtool, so you're not scared about it. After you did like 3, 4, 5 small subtool, you feel more confident. The all assets kind of start to come together visually, so you have like more like confidence, and then you can jump at the end onto the big shapes that usually scare me. So they are like the size 1 trim detail pass. So even here you can see the polygon there. It's not really smooth when you zoom from really close, but you don't need more, because when you zoom out you can't even see the polygons and all those imperfections, as I said earlier. So same thing, sometime I put a Z sub trim, and next to it I put another Z sub trim. It really depends the situation, and usually we kind of do that everywhere, but it's not true. We in some part you don't put it, but we usually put it a lot. So there, trying to see if it works, what can be added. It's really difficult to balance detail and area of visual rest, but when you did your basic shapes, you kind of divided those areas already. So now I can kind of, it doesn't really matter if I get over detailed in the place where I decided where the detail have to be, because you will have those areas of visual rest around anyway, right? And because you started with like a size 2 trim brush, this one will be seen the further away, and when you zoom in you will have the size 1 brush detail path that will kind of pop out. So it's kind of like a LOD kind of ID in a way. But the first thing that you'll see from really far, far, far away is the basic shapes. It's why this shape, those shapes will be seen all the time. So it's why it's really important. And the details, like most of the time, you don't see them, so they are kind of less important. A little bit less important, because everything is important in there. It's in its own way, I would say. So here I add detail with the trim brush size 1 beam. There, size 2, the basics of it, and then size 1, like, way more precise. And now that it looks really good in a overall, I'm gonna place some color and try to choose some very contrasted color from the other one, and I'm gonna pick up this dark gray, so all of those dark gray are the same color together. So now you have seen me applying all those rules and technique onto 2 subtools. What I will do, I will repeat those like steps onto the other subtools, and then my asset will be done. So I think it's a really simple workflow because it doesn't use complex tools. The only thing will be to have an understanding of design and having lots of art rules in the head. I thought back in the time that it would be something impossible for me to do because it's looked like it's a lots of work, but after a few months of training I was already happy about what I was doing, so everybody can do it and you can do it. And here I can still see like a little imperfection, so I'm gonna go back in the subdivision and smooth it from there so it will be easier and cleaner. And be careful when you smooth at this stage because your smooth brush is set up to smooth like geometry but like vertex color too, so try to switch off RGB on your smooth brush. Thank you for watching, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to send it to me on my email. I will be really happy to answer it if I can. Cheers!